has finally begun to be spring here, and I have decided that I'm going to get some things done that I've wanted to get done for a long time. This is old canvas and had sat out in the sun for so many years that it had been faded. It wasn't, the fabric was in good shape, it was just looked really bad. So I have been experimenting with Core, it's from Golden, watercolor medium. And let me see if I can find it real quick and show you what it looks like. And this will be backwards, but it's QOR watercolor ground. And it's a liquid watercolor, pre-watercolor medium. And what you do with it is primed this fabric. I cleaned it really well. Of course I took it off the chair, but I wanted to paint it on the chair just so you could see what I'm trying to accomplish. I've gotten really deep into watercolors and was looking for a way that my raw canvas paintings, I could work with that and still have that same weepy, flowy kind of look, but wanted to see what I could do. I wanted to stay in the same feelings of the other chair that I did with the little silly little Tweety bird. I have decided probably painting a little self-portrait there. There is a wooden swing that goes with this set, a big double-person wooden swing, and a table and a side table and a coffee table that goes with this. Have you ever felt like you need to get your house in order? That's how I'm feeling. And so this chair right here, and I'm going to tip you down and get you closer so you can see what I'm doing here. It's pretty unplanned. I'm just going to start painting, but this is covered with 3 coats of the Core made from Golden watercolor grounds, and it is supposed to make this into almost the same consistency as watercolor paper. And you know how I love wet on wet. Let me tip you down, and you don't need to see me anyway. You just want to see what's going on with the chair. So that's what I'll do. So hang on to your hats. Okay, the first thing I did was I taped off stripes, equal stripes, and painted them in white with yellow ochre, so I could get a stripe. And then I went through with just the same color after that stripe was done, went in and did a plaid. So it was just a free and easy little plaid there. I'm going to use acrylic paints. I'm going to use whatever I have on hand, and I'm going to water them down and use them as watercolors. And I want this little bird to stand out. And after this whole thing is dry, you know me and my doodling pens. That's what I'm going to go in and play with. I want to get the chair wet. When I'm watercoloring, I paint wet on wet, and it makes it so my colors weep. I'm going to do some background here, and I'm not going to be fussy about it at all. I just want to get some color into the style that I want it to look like. can see that that color just weeps around and flows as it wants to flow. And I'm just really okay with that. And whenever I'm using any kind of paint like this, I'm going to use a lot of water. And funny, that is what acrylic paint people tell you not to do, is overwater your paints. But I have been doing it for a long, long time. And I want to get a little bit of that background into these plaids here. So I'm trying to get a little bit of a composition going here in the background. All of these paints are going to be very wet and just weepy. I want these flower stems to look like they're coming in and out and around these plaids. I don't have a huge thought process in me today for this. I just wanted to paint. So just wanted to bring you along for the journey. You know how journeys go. They get lonely when you don't have people with you. I tend to use acrylic paints like watercolors, and against all, against all kinds of people going, you can't do that. So I'm going to be very random. You can see how this paint is literally just fading into this wet background. And when I'm painting, I'm constantly thinking of, the time old, SK, composition, come on, get your composition right. And what I'm going to paint on these are black-eyed Susans. And so that I want to make sure that I get my composition correct, so that when I get the bird painted on there, it will feel like he's homing in. You guys can all do this. There's not one of you out there that I've talked to that can't do this. I don't think there's a person out there that couldn't do what I do. It'll be fun to go back and doodle on this after it's completely done. I'm going to load my paintbrush. I have a very fine-tipped, round, rather large. The butt, which is the very bottom of your paintbrush next to the ferrule. That's called the butt, believe it or not. I want to get this loaded with as much paint as I can. And then I'm going to take it sideways into some lighter color. And I'm just going to make simple leaves. I just push the butt down and then lift it as I'm coming out. And you guys have seen me do this 100 times, and you've probably done it 1,000,000 times. When I'm painting a very large piece, I'm working from far to near. So the farther something is from you, the more atmosphere, and I call it water molecules, that there is between you and that faraway subject. So it becomes lighter and lighter the farther away it is. So what I can do here is I can take a little bit of that green paint and some of that blue paint, and this looks dark right now, but it will lighten up as it dries, and it'll make it look like it's farther and farther away. The farther and farther away something becomes, the lighter the value. Now, there's a part over here that is too straight for me. It didn't bleed out enough, so I'm going to spray it a little bit. I want to keep this damp because I want these first, the very first of these layers to be very light and very melty looking. If you don't know about Angela and Dogwood Exchange, Jazzing Up the Junk, this will be the 3rd year. So I'm going to play with this little bird for a minute to see if I can come up with something that I can recognize as an actual bird. And remember, this is all wet, so I will be putting my arm in it, I'm sure. I want him to be as fun and frivolous as my bird on the other chair, which is very silly, I know, but it's just the way it is. And this is still very damp here, and these are just the undercoats. And when you paint like this, and you're painting on this kind of either a raw canvas or this core watercolor canvas that makes it feel like watercolor, you can do undercoats and you can do layering. By the time I'm finished with this, there'll probably be 6 or 7 layers. Thank you. I hope everyone is coming out of this nightmare with a little bit of perspective. It hasn't really affected me at all because I pretty much stay in my studio. I'm not a out and about kind of, I'm way up in North Idaho. And so most of my stuff comes by mail, which I really like. I don't enjoy shopping at all. Now this little blue-headed SK bird, more fantasy bird than than a true bird. It has a blue head. And his body is going to be yellow. So I'm putting down my undercoats that will soak into this core watercolor medium, and it won't be long that I will be able to come and start putting highlights on him. And I'm way past due putting more stuff on. Yeah, I've never been a shopper. I've had girlfriends, you know, when I was younger, oh, let's go shopping, let's go do lunch, let's do lunch. And the minute somebody says, let's do lunch, I pretty much run the other way. When you're painting in this kind of style, it takes very, very little paint. If you're a watercolorist, you know how little paint it takes to do a painting. And when I start something like this, my first few hours of subject are very loose and very fast. It's when I start getting into, you know, very delicate parts that I will start bringing in the big guns and bringing in some brighter colors, more attention to detail. Remember that this is still very wet, and this paint that I'm putting on here is a little bit thick, so I need to water it down because I want this to soak into this. I want it to become part of the fabric. Now, getting the background done like this, I will then go in and after it's a little bit drier, this first coat is dry, then I'll start putting on the Black-Eyed Susans. I hope you guys are going to enjoy your summer. Even if it's at home, do something special in your home. Brighten your own day, brighten up other people's days. I'm anxious to get this entire set of 5 pieces done. There's a huge 2-person wooden swing that hangs from chains, and it's in its sanding process right now, but I'm going to be working on that, I think, next. Now, as you see, this watercolor starts to just meld into this watercolor paper. I keep forgetting where I put everything down. You can see that it just will melt into the background. You can do this on paper, you can do this on canvas, you can do it on large canvases or small table canvases. So if you haven't played with it, and I'm still just discovering what I want to be able to do with it, to see if I can just push it to, and I'm sure that Golden probably isn't happy with how I push their products around to do things that they probably weren't meant to do. They weren't designed for this. But that's the challenge to me, is taking something and pushing it past its limits. Been watching a lot of you do in your lives and the wonderful things that you're doing on furniture. It's wonderful to watch you artists at work. Now, as I let this sit and meld in, if you're trying to do something like this, where you're working on a wet on wet surfaces. I do this on my furnitures too. This is how I paint my furniture, is wet on wet. And it makes it so so I can come back. I can constantly be coming back and come and do another coat. The more coats I put on this, I have to be very careful because I'm very heavy-handed. I'm an oil painter, I'm a knife painter, and this is such a delicate process compared to me painting a piece of furniture with a brush, you know, this big. I can layer that, and we've seen some extraordinary things happening in the furniture world, and it makes me itch. Makes me want to get in there and do something. But I've made some commitments to clients, and I'm so far behind. I don't know about you guys, but are you as behind us as I am? And you know, when you're trying to have a life and a garden and laying chickens and all of this stuff, it becomes so. Do you see how this is running? I want that to do that. And if I wanted that to happen even more, just like you do on a watercolor painting or I just sprayed myself in the face. You can make that happen even more dramatically. I don't want it to infringe on my bird though. So I watch it pretty careful to see that, I love this look. That pretty, drippy look. And I will do that almost, try to do that in a composition pattern. If you want to see, if you want to see the other things that I'm doing, you can always check me out on Facebook. I have a web page, but it's a disaster because I don't want to mess with it. This takes like 40 hours a day just to keep your website up. But my works are on Society 6. I use paint like I want to use it. I'll test it and I'll test it and I'll test it, and then I will just break every rule. So as I watch this drip and run, I can play with little areas that have a wrong composition. I can look in a camera. If you've ever painted something and can't figure out what is wrong, you can get a mirror and put your painting in front of a mirror or your piece of furniture or whatever you're working on, and look at it from a completely different perspective. And it's incredible what it makes, what it does to your eyes. It can actually, I can go, okay, I like that, and I'm looking at it backwards, you know, from the camera. I like that part. I'm not real thrilled with this little part right here. You know, maybe I've muddied it up a little bit, but I'm gonna let it dry, and then I'll come back. And because I tend to be really heavy-handed, when I'm watercoloring like this, I have to be very, very soft. I have to have soft music. I have to be in the mood to want to share. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to blow dry this to stop it from running anymore. Then I'm going to go back and start adding in some details. And when you're working with acrylics, realistically, if you put too much water in your acrylics, they say that it will make your acrylics fragile. Well, I've been doing it for 30 years, and I haven't had any fragility at any time, because I watch it and I take care of it. And when a piece is commissioned, they know what they're getting, and they know what they have to do to keep that piece in a really righteous position for the rest of their lives. And I use clear coat, a clear paste wax, and I paste wax all of my canvases, my furniture canvases that are sitting on and used. I paste wax mine and buff them once a year. And it's the same thing as what you do with real leather, because that's kind of what this feels like, is when it's completely done, it feels like leather. I love y'all. I've missed being on. I've missed being creative. And this order kind of put me in a, really, do I want to do that? But I wanted to be part of the creative challenge this month, and it just felt right for me to do something. You can watch my videos anytime. All my tutorials are free. I do have a tutorial on rust and copper, and it is a paid tutorial, but it's the most amazing stuff that you would ever see in your whole life. So you can see all that on my Facebook page, SK on Elderberry. You can contact me anytime, message me if you want. I am planning on trying to teach a little bit more this summer, so that I can start unloading a little bit more and more off of my mind and getting it down on real life, because I think life is going to be short, or life is short, and it becomes to a point where you hope that your footprint that you've left, it was a good footprint. I'm also going to do a live on palette knife sculpturing. That's been one of the ones that people really, really want to watch. Have a great day. You guys have an amazing weekend. I hope the sun is shining on your life and your family's life. And may God bless. Bye.